Hey, look, it's a biopic. It's Bob Marley, One Love. And it's on Paramount Plus and it has audio description. So click that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what's your favorite biopic? I really want to know. Maybe I'll review it. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. You never know until you try. It's probably not Bob Marley One Love, though. I'm just going to guess. This is directed by Reynaldo Marcus Green. He was the guy that also made King Richard. So this guy likes making biopics. Um, this is Sweet Spot. And, I mean, obviously nobody's going to tell him no. He's got a Best Picture nominee. So this is not going to be a Best Picture nominee. That's why the Oscar campaign for this was abandoned and it was pushed into the early part of the year because Paramount was like, this is not, nope. Which is totally valid. Does not mean it's a terrible film. It just is kind of is this really the best we could do for Bob Marley? You know? I mean, that's the thing about biopics is that when you start watching them and you start going through all of them, there's some really great biopics out there that sort of really fully encompass like an artist's vision or like what they were about, a certain moment in time that was super interesting, something. This kind of just is. Um, but it does have Kingsley Ben-Adir and Lashana Lynch, both of whom are really good in this. And I mean, Lashana Lynch is predictably really good in everything. I really loved her in Matilda. I thought she was terrific in that. And Kingsley is, fresh off of Secret Invasion, where I'm sure people didn't watch that and are tired of Marvel shows. So now we get One Love. We get Bob Marley One Love. And it's kind of just like the greatest hits of Bob Marley is really what this is. Every time they want to perform a Bob Marley song, they have to perform it in like its entirety. So we just kind of stop so the song can be performed and Kingsley can get his jam on, looking like he's singing to Bob Marley singing. Um, it's all right, you know. It breaks up the story, so there isn't as much story to be had here. The story is kind of light. It doesn't really have anything to say. It wants to have something to say, but it doesn't ever say it. It talks a lot about political unrest and where Bob Marley fits in that world. Starts off at the beginning, political unrest. There's like an assassination attempt on Bob Marley. Um, and the Wailers, I should say. They were there too. Um, and he sort of gets told, hey, this is what's going on in the country right now. This is why the country needs you, man. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And he has lots of like meditative moments. We don't really get into like the whole thing about what is it that's going on that is causing this unrest. Like what is wrong around this country? There just is. It's just like there just is unrest, man. Of course. Like, isn't that life? Just political unrest is life, man. Like, don't ask questions. It just doesn't mean anything. It's just like there are angry people, man. You should sing anyway. What are they angry about? I don't know. Sing, man. They're on stage. It doesn't really like. I know it's Bob Marley's biopic, so like I'm sure they were like, why should we explore what the people are angry about? I don't know, because you brought it up. That's why. You're the one that brought. You could write anything that you want to about Bob Marley's biopic. You could write it however you wanted. This is the biopic you chose. You should follow through. and shape it and round it out and be like, this is what people are mad about. This is what makes sense. This is why Bob Marley is so important. Instead of just kind of like casually hinting at things and being, and just like having people just talk about the, like, how Marley is iconic, which is exactly what happens. There's a scene I remember from the film where uh, they're having a concert and there's a woman on stage that's like, this is supposed to be a Bob Marley tribute concert, and everybody's like, ah! But why? I mean, I feel like don't don't just tell us that he's got a biopic. Of course he's awesome. That's why you got a biopic. Like, show us why he's awesome. Explain to us like what he meant to these people and these movements. We just get these weird little glimpses. This is such a disjointed movie. Like, this doesn't feel like it's the guy that made King Richard at all. It feels like the guy who just made like a car commercial and doesn't know how to direct anything at feature length. He's like, oh, I direct my life 60 seconds at a time. Cool. Well, now you have to direct it at 2 hours a time. Whoa, man, that's a lot. I don't know how to do that. I just made a really cool car commercial, man. I don't know about that. It feels like a bunch of ideas that were thrown at a wall. Like nobody really knew how to make a Bob Marley biopic. Nobody ever actually talked to Bob Marley fans about like why he was important to them. Just I mean, you will learn stuff about Bob Marley. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to totally tank this. This is not like, oh my God, this is a terrible film. It's just disappointing because it could have been better. Like, this is, again, the director of King Richard. It's nowhere near the quality of King Richard, which I didn't even think was my favorite film that year. Um, I will say I'm not necessarily a Bob Marley fan going in, but I don't think I need to be a fan of everybody before I go into their biopic. Generally, biopics can answer questions and win me over by explaining why someone was important or what it is that they did or why we should care or how we're still affected today by the things they did in the past. All of those questions are really solid and need to be asked and answered. This one kind of dances around all those. It has some moments that are moderately effective, which keep it from falling apart, but it's just disappoint. It's disappointing overall. Um, but the performances are strong. I think Kingsley and Lashana both do really good jobs, which helps to elevate the film. Um, I think the work that they do, especially considering the weird sort of like feels like it's a clip show. Feels like we're just jumping through the life, and there's no real coherent plot to this. So the fact that they're able to bring life into these performances is actually kind of amazing. I mean, because first we're jumping around. We jump around in time too. So we go back to there are people who play like young Bob Marley and young. I forgot the name of his wife. I'm sorry. I know that's probably like iconic for a lot of people, but young Lashana, um, and we see them and we see like Bob and the beginnings of Rastafarianism for him and what that looked like and how he sort of grew into the artist that he was, and in addition to the artist that he is, because this is all in the past, so obviously the artist he is within the time frame. Um, Moving forward, jumping around, there's a lot having to do with the assassination attempt and like what does that mean for him, um, and having flashbacks. But then we have to stop and play a song. We got to get all the songs in there. So every once in a while, we'll just stop and perform the entirety of a song. So um, yeah, it's I think true Bob Marley fans will like this. because they like the music. You know what I'm saying? Like, they will appreciate the fact that the music is there, and you can enjoy Kingsley's performance. It just doesn't have much to say as a biopic. I just think that there could have been a better way to tell this story. And now that this story has been done, it kind of feels like no one else is going to touch it. At least not for a while. You know, no one's going to make a Bob Marley biopic for years because they're going to be like, well, we have one love. Do we? You know, can we not try for another one later? We seem to only want to make one biopic about people. Most people only ever get one biopic. So if it's not great, that's it. That's the representation of their life. Audio description here was fine. Interestingly, I watched this the same day as something else that had sort of reflectively almost the same kind of cast, a predominantly black cast. That show felt the need to let everyone know all of the black characters, which I thought was great because I'm all for normalizing the idea that we should know everything about all of the characters, not just the black ones, but the white ones. It just happens to be that is a predominantly black series doing it. So I have a very, conflicting opinion on that because it's like, oh, it's happening, but it's happening with that. Here, we don't do that. Here we have a predominantly black film. Good luck. Good luck figuring out who's who. And just, it's one of those things where it's like sighted people that think about it. You're just like, oh, I know what that person looks like 100% fully. And for people who are looking for representation in film, of course, great. And for Bob Marley, I think most people know going in, so he is the representation. I don't think people are looking for representation outside of Bob Marley, so it bothers me less. And I don't think there are people out there who needed to be told. Maybe there are. Maybe there are people who are like, I don't know if you should know this or not, but this is what's up with Bob Marley. Like, he does talk about it, by the way. Later on in the film, he mentions that he had a white father. So he does talk about being biracial and how that affects him. But so it actually comes up in dialogue in the film. But for the rest of the cast, it's just like, I don't know, take a guess, But it's just part of a larger problem. It's a lot more frustrating in projects with diverse casts when they don't address it at all. When there's no addressing of it. And it shouldn't just be addressed only by the persons of color in films where persons of color are the leads, Like, okay, well, now we'll do it. Great. Why? Why now, but not in other places? So audio description overall, I thought it was fine though. I mean, like what they were actually describing and saying and everything, I don't know that it's the best audio description I've heard of the year, but thought it was fine. So I don't have any complaints about that other than I think as a culture within the audio description community, we should work toward just being a little bit more honest about representation across all TV shows and movies, so that more people see themselves in roles. But then again, for this is Bob Marley, so that's why you're showing up, is for Bob Marley, is for that representation. And I think most people know what that is. So maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, that's it. I'm gonna give Bob Marley One Love. I'm gonna give it a B minus off the strength of the performances. I'll bump it up to a B minus, probably like a C plus film. But I did enjoy the performances from Kingsley and Lashana. So, but this does not make me think Reynaldo Marcus Green has much of a future ahead of him in terms of, like, when his name comes up again, we're going to be like, oh yeah, Oscar. No. We're going to be like, that was a fluke, man. That King Richard thing was a fluke. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.